So now working in a desk job, new husband, new baby, and still trying to make things work. I had taken a significant pay cut, and I started feeling tired and muscle weary and forgetful. And honestly, I just thought it was, well, I'm over 40 and I just had a baby. So of course I'm going to be tired and forgetful and have, little dizzy spells, whatever. It never occurred to me that there was something physically other than that going on. Until one morning I woke up and thought I had a stroke. I couldn't walk. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. Went to the doctor, and through a series of testing, the doctor had tested for carbon monoxide exposure. What I had learned was that carbon monoxide attaches to your red blood cells in the place of oxygen. Most people, this happens in a large dose over a short period of time. So in acute carbon monoxide poisoning, most often people will die, and if they are lucky enough not to die, hyperbaric oxygen treatment can help. The other type of poisoning is chronic poisoning, when you're exposed over a long period of time to very small doses. And then one day your brain is just tired of being suffocated and turns off, and that's what happened to me. We weren't sure where I had been exposed to other than work, because we had our house tested. Nobody else in my family was affected. There were other people in my office that were affected. Unfortunately, in New York State, workers' comp, you really have to be able to prove exactly where you were injured, when you were injured, how you were injured, and you may not use somebody else's injury to sustain yours. So even there was somebody else at the office that had a heart attack after being exposed. Another young lady had a seizure on the way home from work and was in a horrible car accident. Workers' comp said that her injuries were caused by the car accident and not the carbon monoxide, which caused the car accident. Anyway, I also have the habit of hiring really bad attorneys. I hired an attorney that told me he was great, and I believed him. What I should have done was check to see how much workers' comp he did, which was none. But he seemed like a nice guy at the time. Anyway, while we were fighting workers' comp, I didn't know, and my attorney should have told me, that I could have applied for disability, so I didn't. And we did apply for assistance in food stamps, and we were turned down because Jay made $11 too much. My background as a chef, I know how to create meals. I can cook and make things on a small budget. I can take a dry beans or barley and do something with it and make dinner from it with just a few other ingredients. So we're talking $25 every 2 weeks for our family of 5 for 18 months. 18 months not having access to fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. 18 months of coming and looking at my kids, opening up pantry and cupboards and not seeing food there, going to food pantries and being told that we couldn't be helped because we didn't have an EBT card. We were not receiving temporary assistance. We didn't qualify. So we couldn't get help from the food pantries. What I did find out was that we qualified for WIC. Thank God for the WIC program. It's a supplemental food program for women, infants, and children, and provides pregnant or nursing mothers and young children supplemental food items. It gave us milk, it gave us cereal, some grains. Oddly enough, at that time, the only vegetable you could get on the WIC program every month was a pound of carrots. I don't know who picked the carrots or why it was carrots, but I'm glad that they were there. It was something. When you're hungry and you have children to feed, your first priority is to make sure that your kids have food. And more often than not, to look at the food that we prepared and realize that there wasn't enough for us. That, if Jay was working, that was great. He would fend for himself. Often his dinner was the bottle of soda that he bought, and that was it, because he'd have his beverage at work and that's what he ate. And at home, I'd make dinner for our kids and hope that there was something left, and if there wasn't, well, there wasn't. But you learn little things, little tricks, because you still want to be part of a community and you don't want your kids to be stigmatized. So you become the mom that volunteers for every event at school when there's food involved because you know your kids are going to eat. You become the person who looks in the newspaper and sees that there's a fallen hero, a firefighter who died that you never met, but you dressed your kids up to take him to his funeral because you know at the firehouse is going to be food later. You're the person that barters whenever you can, trades whatever you can to make sure that your kids are going to eat. And you never let them know that every other excuse that you gave them, why they couldn't go on the field trip, why they couldn't go to a friend's birthday party. You'd say, you know, daddy had to work or mommy doesn't feel well, somebody would get sick. The truth was we never had money and you couldn't send a kid to a birthday party of a friend because you couldn't afford the present. And I wasn't going to tell my kids that they weren't going to a friend's party because we were too poor to give their friend a gift. So when the Farmers Market Nutrition Program vouchers came out for WIC, it was the first chance that we had for fresh fruit and fresh vegetables in our house in a really long time. It was like being given grandma's credit card and being shown F.A. Schwartz and said, here, this is for you. So I can't even get to tell you how happy and excited I was that I was in our local farmers market and I could get $20 or whatever I wanted. And there was a young lady there that I knew from the WIC office who wasn't as excited as I was. And she brought up a really interesting point. A lot of good a vegetable is if you don't know how to cook it. It doesn't do any good. And I realized, wow, here's an adult that doesn't know how to cook. How do you become an adult and not know how to cook? So our first class was me, her, and her two sons, my kids, and cooking together and just taking some things from the farmer's market. And from the beginning of the season, there were fiddleheads still out. And they called them alien pods. So the first dish that the Queens Galley that I had created with them was alien pod primavera. It was a simple saute. And we brought stuff, she brought things that she had gotten from the food pantry, and I had brought some things together. And we ate better because we brought food together. And the next week, she brought a friend, and the week after that, there were other people, and it just kept going. And my husband had said, you know, where are you doing this? And I'd tell him where. He'd kind of shake his head. He says, you know, I'm really not comfortable because you're not in a good neighborhood. The neighborhood that we're living in isn't the best, and now you're going into even deeper sections of the city. So we made an agreement that I would still do these classes, but I would see if I could use one of the church basements and the Trinity Lutheran Church.